And we are with you. Yes. Hello, gorgeous, wonderful, beautiful people. I am thrilled to be with you today. It feels like an age since I've been here. Welcome to Angel Heart Radio. It's great to have you back with us, Philip. This is your regular time of the month to be here on Angel Heart Radio.
Thank you. Lovely to be back.
Yippee, we've got lots of good things to share with everyone today. We're going to talk about the crossover between spirituality and science. So this is going to be a really cool topic. And we were just chatting before we came on about all the different aspects that we could address today. So if you're watching anywhere other than on the Angel Heart Radio Facebook page, please do come on over there, watch the live stream there, because we can see your comments, your questions, your requests, and we encourage you to share what's on your mind, what you'd like assistance with, or maybe just your thoughts. So, Philip, having this opportunity to share you is really great. So can you tell people a little bit about you, what it is you do, and how they can contact you?
So most of my time is spent doing counselling and psychotherapy. And when I say I do it for everybody, I really, really am fortunate and blessed enough to do it for everybody. So I do it for kids to old people, and I do it for the disability sector. And we do a lot of science-based practice, and we definitely embrace spirituality as well, because in my experience, the two are intrinsically linked and can't survive one without the other. Hence one of the reasons that I thought it'd be a great topic to bring to the show today.
Wonderful. I love it. I'm just checking out a couple of things here, so bear with me, everyone. The really wonderful thing about that for me personally, Philip, is that we have this opportunity again on Angel Heart Radio to help us all to understand, maybe for the first time, maybe to shore up some thoughts that you're already having, guys. Maybe it's a new way of thinking for you, that we don't actually have to separate anything. It doesn't have to be an either or, Philip. And that's the thing that I find really inspiring, because when we go to either or, we're closing the door on lots of opportunities, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it was always going to be a natural progression for me, because I grew up in very traditional, like Christian upbringing. And then, as always happens, you get into higher learning, you start researching. Obviously, my field of choice was psychology. And so then naturally what happens is you get presented with all of these basically exclusive to science theories that really don't include spirituality at all. And there is so much to learn there, and all of those disciplines have so much to offer and have gifted all of us such a great science when it comes to what they can contribute to psychology. But they all, in my experience, all come back to that point of leading us back to spirituality in essence. Yeah.
I have to say that feels very congruent for me too. Once I began to understand, and we were chatting a little bit about this before we went on air, when I began to understand that I didn't have to make definitive choices, I always felt like, well, you can only believe this or that. When I began to realize that there was a whole lot more, there were so many shades of gray, there were rainbow colors and flecks all through everything. And that while we used to believe that it was this or that, me or you, us or them, we're really coming to a point in our growth and development as human beings, as spiritual beings here on the earth, that we are so much more deeply connected than we could ever begin to realize. And having that understanding and knowledge, even if it's just a tiny little spark, begins to open up not only us, but communication, boundaries, love for other people, respect, honor, acceptance. You know, there was this really cool post I put up on Angel Heart Radio the other day. I don't know where it came from originally, but it's like a sign, and it looks like it might be outside of a school or a hall or something like that. I'm just getting it now so I can read it, because I felt this was so beautiful, and it's really relevant to now. And it says, love your neighbor who doesn't look like you. think like you, love like you, speak like you, pray like you, vote like you, love your neighbor, no exceptions. And I felt this was such a beautiful and powerful message that is so important to share. And it's very closely connected with today's topic, Philip.
Yeah. Oh, such a powerful message, isn't it? And it's something that it's so easy to forget, despite the fact that how committed you are to just sharing love and unconditional love, right? Not like, oh, I know that person, we get along well, so I'm going to love you. Yeah, it's so easy to forget that if you don't understand the person, recognize them, like the way they do things necessarily, that's really no excuse to not still meet them with unconditional love. And
Mm-hmm.
especially if they don't do things that you like. And I'd really like to change that person. Well, do you know how you change that person? Unconditional love. So there you go. What choice do you have?
That's a cool thing too, because it's very easy to feel like we've got the answers. Oh gosh, I spent so much of my early life believing I had the answers, that I knew best. I had to be in control.
Mm.
And that is literally a recipe for bringing us to our knees, whether
Yeah.
it's an individual, a corporation, a country, whoever it is. It's going to bring you to your knees eventually. So why not step out of that, even a tiny bit, and maybe just be open to possibilities. Possibilities are endless. They're constantly flowing. The ebb and change is all around us. It flows and it seems to wash away, and then it comes back in another form. So, let's now talk about, Philip, some ways that you personally would love to share of how, I nearly said religion, um, which I guess is a science in itself, right?
Yeah, I
In
suppose so.
inverted comma. So, how does science and spirituality overlap and work with each other for you personally in your business, your counseling business?
Especially when we're focusing on psychology and counseling. There are lots of ways in which spirituality has started already to seep into ways in which even very, very secular mental health professionals start to treat their clients. The one that you will have seen lots and lots and lots of so far are things like mindfulness. Mindfulness really has all of its roots in spirituality and spiritual practice. And throughout religious history, you see lots of examples of techniques which have basically replicated and benefited those practitioners, which have now been simplified into mindfulness. There was an interesting podcast that I was brought onto a long time ago about the benefits of just active breathing. So making sure to breathe through your nose for a start, and making sure to pay attention to how you breathe and when you breathe, simple stuff. But when they looked at active breathing patterns and what was beneficial, even as far as timing wise for your health, they found those same patterns of breathing replicated among chanting in some very, very primal religious cultures there. They found it replicated in Catholic practices when they were saying their rosaries and things. Little things just to basically get your mind on the here and now, focus on your breathing, slow down. And so that's one way in which spirituality and those religious practices have started to bleed over into more secular mindfulness. So that's a very practical thing.
Yeah.
Then you do get to the very spiritual thing as well, where as I say, like you've got your Freuds, you've got your Maslows, you've got your Skinners. They've all done fantastic things to add to how we understand human behavior, how we understand maladaptive or bad behavior, which all bring us back to really putting ourselves back together into the cohesive being that we want to be. But they all lead back to this one missing question. They all lead back to the why am I here question. And it's a difficult question to answer in absence of spirituality. If you have no spirituality, then you're only here by accident. It's very, very hard to find fulfillment in being a cosmic accident.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
in a counseling session, you can't say to a person, I'm telling you you're here on purpose, and expect them to just accept it. Some people go, I've got to disagree with you. I don't think I am. And so you got to respect the decision. You got to try and put this person together, believing they're a cosmic accident. Man, I tell you, it's hard. It's really hard.
But that's the thing, isn't it, Philip? And we were talking a little bit about this before we came on air. That's part of the journey, isn't it? To understand that everybody has to find their own path in their own way and in their own time. And the fact that they reach out and ask for assistance is brilliant, because suddenly doors can be revealed or highlighted, almost like a spotlight shining on them, that they may not have realized were there. And then it's up to them whether or not they want to walk through those doors or even open them. So for the purposes of, today's program, having you and to bring your expertise to the show is fabulous, because you're dealing with people all the time. And you as an individual, you as a person, you are also having to learn through that process, right? Because like you say, you can't, say, well, this is what you got to do. You have to believe this.
Yeah. As you rightly said, sometimes you just shine the spotlight on it and the person's like, wait, that was there the whole time? And you're like, yep, I'm just going to leave that there and you can do with that whatever you want. And then they're just like, a few years later, they might be like, it's still there. I'm like, well, it's not going away. Like, you're going to for a long time, but at some point you're going to have to go, oh man, I've really got to answer this question for myself, don't I? I've really got to find out what's in that corner. Yeah.
So what about, do you ever deal with people who maybe, do you do couples therapy, by the way?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so do you ever have clients come to you where, maybe one is purely on a scientific wavelength and the other is spiritual? How do you help people come to some sort of understanding with each other, so that they can find peace in themselves and in their relationship with that?
Yeah, and a lot of the time it does depend on the individual relationships and the individual standpoints on issues like faith, because some people are very, very unwavering in their approach to faith, as in, I must be at church every Sunday at 9 a.m. It's essential to my mental well-being. And if you can't get on board with that, we're not going to work out. Again, if it's like that, sometimes you just got to respect that. These days, obviously, we're in society, we're trying to be just forgiving and embracing of our differences. So a lot of partners will just be like, you need to be at church on Sunday. Cool, fine. See you in a couple of hours. And that's fine. But thankfully, because science is starting to verify a lot of what spirituality has been telling us all along, if a person is very rigidly scientific, we tend to just stick to the hard facts. For example, we know that if a person is diagnosed with cancer and the doctor says it's terminal, if that person believes and says, no, it's not, I'm going to pray, I'm going to believe for health, and I'm going to live, the chances of them living are exponentially higher. We're talking like a 90% increase. If they say, fair enough, it's my time, I'm going to die, you're dead.
Yeah.
That's rooted in spirituality. That's all about prayer, positive thinking, believing that we can, opening yourself up to a higher power for the ability to be healed. And that all might sound like airy-fairy stuff to the person who lives in the very, very scientific world. But at the end of the day, the hard fact is, if you choose to believe you'll live, chances are you'll live. If you choose to believe you die, chances are you'll die. Those are the hard facts.
And there are such practical applications around that. Personally, I have a very, very good friend who had cancer. Man, oh man, on paper, he was in a very bad way. It had gone right through his bones by this stage. And on x-ray, his bones were black. And he was very frail, very thin, but such an incredible person. And he really looked to science and spirituality. So he read a lot. I can't say what he did, and I probably wouldn't, because I'm not offering advice on this. Oh, by the way, everyone. Yeah, thanks, God. Okay, so Angel Heart Radio should not be used to replace your legal, medical, nor any professional advice you may have or seek, nor your own sound judgment. Good. So he began to apply different things, lots of things. He changed his lifestyle in many ways. One of the things he did was he got the early morning sun. Apparently, that light in the morning, not looking into the sun, but the early morning light actually tells your brain and therefore your body what to create for the day. What do you need? What's going to support your body? He did a lot of different things. And of course, he began to just turn around. And on his last scan, they couldn't detect any cancer in his body. And his
Wow.
bones were perfectly white again.
Wow.
Now, most people would agree that if it had gone to that place in a person's body, Anita Moorjani is a prime example of this. Her book, Dying to Be Me, if you don't have it, if you haven't read it, if you haven't heard it, there's an audio book. I cannot recommend it more highly enough. You know, most people would agree there's no going back from that. And it shows, doesn't it, Philip, that, look, and I think there's an aspect here that there is a time I believe our soul will choose when it's time for us to go, even though we may not want to go at that time for reasons we can't understand. However, it shows me so clearly that there are so many opportunities and miracles occur all the time, every day. And the fact that we see them as something a little bit unusual, or maybe a bit woo-woo, or maybe they happen to other people. I think as we begin to embrace that into our own language that we speak to ourselves and others, that they're quite commonplace. The fact that we're sitting here speaking is a miracle. The fact that I have air to breathe and lungs that were perfectly created and designed to not only absorb the oxygen, but then to disperse it perfectly throughout every cell of my body without me even thinking about it. I think that's a perfect example, actually, of science and spirituality.
Yes, yeah. If
Awesome.
you look into just simple biology of living organisms such as humans or any animals, the level of complexity is probably 100 times more than you would expect. And the more because I love looking into stories of human complexity, because the more we learn, because we're still learning about how complex a single-celled organism is. We used to think it was just a single-celled organism, pretty cut and paste. But as we learn more about genetics and more about like cell biology, it's fantastically more complicated than we thought it was. And you're exactly right. It just shows such amazing, intelligent design, and certainly not an accident that anybody is here. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, you know, we've got really great pioneers, but I want to come back a little bit more about the couples thing. But we've got amazing people in this field, you know, people like Dr. Bruce Lipton, for example. You know, what an absolutely, you know, Greg Braden, amazing people who are working in this field all the time and revealing how deeply connectable it all is for any individual if they choose it.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, so I guess all we can say on that is it even doesn't matter whether it's whether you're dealing with a grief or loss, or whether you're dealing with a relationship issue, or whether it's a health issue. There's so much more to be gained by exploring what is available to you in the spiritual aspects of your life, of your existence, or of your partner's existence, or of the existence of the person who you're mourning. Or yeah,
Yeah.
lots to embrace, lots to
I don't
learn.
know how people cope through grief who believe that it's just finished. I actually don't
The
know how people.
reality is, in my experience in that area, is they don't they don't cope, because they're missing that connecting piece, which tells you exactly what's going on and helps you to understand the process of coming and going and passing on and what happens next. Without that, you are left stuck in that whole question, why? And it doesn't make sense. So
That's right. And what's the point? What's the point of even being here if that's just it? That's a question I think a lot of people have as well. And in my personal experience, I have no scientific experience whatsoever, of course, but my personal experience through my own personal exploration of my own spirituality is that the more I'm open, the more is revealed to me. And it's quite gobsmacking, actually. Things that once I would not have believed existed outside special effects movies. And actually just occur all the time.
Mm.
And it's after they've occurred. And I like to tell the stories because, quite honestly, sometimes things will happen and I can actually talk myself out of, oh, maybe I dreamt that, you know?
Mm.
So I really like to share those stories because then they become commonplace. And after all, throughout recorded history, and we know previously, even before recorded history, when it wasn't recorded in the way that we understand it, but information has been discovered scientifically through, digs, etc. This is how information has always been shared. It's the storytelling. It's the
Mm.
coming together as community. It's the opportunity to open up and give those small gifts to people. And then they then take it into their heart and then they nurture it and then they begin to share it. And this is, I can see it in my mind's eye, this definite connection that we all have. And it doesn't even matter whether or not we speak the same language. I used to host international students, Philip, this was so cool. And I had this beautiful young student from Japan come to my home who had not a word of English. So how do you ask this person, do you eat eggs? I don't know. So I said to the angels, how do I ask her if she likes eggs? Because, some people have allergies, right? And so I just, I just went, pointed at her, right? She got it instantly. And the ice was broken and we formed a bond instantly. And it was so fun at the same time. And that's how we communicated while she was learning to speak English.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, our
Okay.
similarities far outweigh our differences, don't they? Like far, far, far. Yeah.
Far, 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 far. Yep, absolutely. And, the other cool thing that happened throughout that period of time was there was a young guy that came to me he was a Chinese guy, lovely young guy, lovely boy, actually was 16. And he'd been here for quite a while and his English was not progressing, nor was it improving. And I absolutely loved having the young kids. A lot of people didn't like them because there was curfews and things like that. It was, a bit more work. But I really loved it. And anyway, 3 weeks after he was here, I got a call from his homestay provider to say, what are you doing? I said, what do you mean? They said, I won't say his name, he now speaks English. What are you doing? He's been here 3 months. He's been with you 3 weeks. I said, I just talked to him. It's not rocket science.
Yeah.
So again, and even that comes into, to me, science and spirituality, because when you start breaking down the cold hard facts of how does a person learn English, there are certain steps that they're going to take. But when you come from your heart, which is all about spirituality for me personally, and you combine those two, boom, sky's the limit.
Yep. Yeah. I could even break it down theoretically and say that we know, because we measure these things under an ECG, we know that if you're not feeling positive, your brain actually stops firing. So your neurons aren't going. And you need your neurons firing just to be able to retain new information. So if you approach a person with love and acceptance, first of all, and allow their brain to start firing, perhaps you're actually literally turning on their ability to learn.
Nice one. I like it. I like it a lot. Welcome. Robert is watching. Welcome, everyone. Elaine, welcome, my love. If you have any questions, comments, or you would just like to ask us anything, please do feel free to add your comment, particularly on the Angel Heart Radio Facebook live stream on our page, because we can see them. Okay, so we touched a little bit, because I feel this couples question is very important, because not only are we looking at couples, we're looking at a community of couples. And of course, these couples then often become parents. So then the community grows larger and we have families of more than just the two people. So what are some of the things you could say to people who maybe have polar opposite views and opinions on science and spirituality?
So most importantly, I would say if you have a couple who are having like a constant sticking point about the particular approach to faith or spirituality, generally speaking, there is individual aspects about that spirituality which one or t'other partner will be worried about, if you make sense. So let's say we have a Christian and a non-Christian partner, and the non-Christian partner might be going to the Christian partner, I don't like this and I don't want to expose to my kids. But the Christian partner be saying, well, this is my entire life, so my kids are going to get exposed to it. So sorry. In almost all of those cases, it's not the faith that is an issue. There'll be a specific instance or one little aspect which that person has taken umbrage over, and they're worried that it's going to get passed on to their kids. They're worried it's going to be a sticking point between them. And it could be something like they may have seen a person be too moralistic and it's caused them to be disagreeable, and they just see if they go down that path, that is where the children will end up. So often exploring these specifics about where the issues lie often breaks down the whole argument, because then the Christian person might be like, well, that's not my approach to Christianity at all. I abandoned that years ago. And there may not be an issue at all. But until you find out what that actual sticking point is, then it's difficult to get past.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is really super important. I'm so glad we're touching on this today, because we can imagine now just so easily from there, if we can't figure out how to communicate and deal with that, families literally explode and implode. And then we have situations where families simply can't coexist together anymore. Mm.
Yeah, very good.
So I want to give a shout out to our lovely Linda is watching, and Belinda Brown. She says she's loving it. She's loving this. This is awesome. Thanks for letting us know. If you guys have any questions that you would like to ask Philip, and even if you want to remain anonymous, begin it with "don't say my name," and that's how we'll go about it. So if you don't want to, share it on there, of course it would be on our page. So in situations where, okay, so let's take that theme and just kind of move it along a little bit to a slightly different angle. You have parents who may be very religious, as an example, or very scientific without religion, and children, kids coming up now who have a really connected spiritual feeling approach themselves. They're then having children. You've got grandparents feeling like the grandkids aren't being brought up properly because there's no religion in their upbringing. How do you help people there?
Yeah, and I think the hardest thing about that is asking people to be really, truly self-reflective and say, what are the benefits of what I want to share and what are the burdens about what I want to share? A person who wants to raise their kids or their grandkids with a faith may say, oh, there are no burdens. This is the way children should be raised. What's the issues? But there can also be consequences to forcing these things on your children. And I'm all for encouraging them to join your spirituality, but there are always consequences to a decision. Will they be alienated from their peer group? Will it cause them to look skeptically on good science and on good research? And of course, it goes the other way as well. You may think, oh, I've just met nothing but obnoxious religious people my whole life. I'm going to tell my kids that God isn't real. Again, what are the consequences? What are they going to miss out on? Because there are intrinsic benefits, scientifically speaking, to raising children in a religious environment. I've met parents who, despite the fact that they have no faith whatsoever, intentionally put their children into Catholic education, because studies show that being raised with that unerring and unwavering moral code raises people to be better balanced individuals. So they've made that decision because they want what's best for their kids, rather than I want them to believe the same thing I believe. So I think it's really hard, isn't it, to say, what about the way I live is not good for my kids? Where could the consequences be? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that then comes back to how another opportunity for us to develop and nurture ourselves in ways that, you know, we may never have believed we possibly could, for example. No, I can't go there. Sometimes we find, well, actually we can, and we do find ways to accommodate the differing opinions, views, understandings. Linda says she actually dealt with this issue herself. So I said, how did you deal with that? And she said, I have learned now to keep my beliefs to myself. I bet that happens a lot, Philip. Religion versus spirituality she's talking about.
Yeah, isn't that, I mean, personally, I think that's such a shame though. And I know, at least on in the public forums, the world says we're getting so inclusive and we're all so tolerant with each other. But in the real world, I actually find it's not that way at all. I find people are actually a bit less tolerant than I've ever found them to be. So I think it's really, really awful that you don't get to just be who you are and be accepted for who you are, because in a perfect world, that's exactly what you would get. So I only hope that you can find someone who allows you to be exactly who you are, a cherished friend or a special person, a mentor, or someone you want to mentor who just sees the world through your eyes, who allow you to celebrate who you are. And it's okay to be challenged. I don't want to believe anything because it's comfortable. I want to believe something because it's real, it works, it's true. But at the same time, if I'm exploring something and the world goes, you dumb, stop talking about it, that's not right either, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, the either or situation again just doesn't work. At the end of the day, doesn't really support anyone. And yet I can understand exactly what Linda is saying, because suddenly, she's finding, okay, so how do I actually live within that framework and not have all the conflict? And she says, it's because I have to keep my views to myself. Oh, and not discuss it with your grandchildren. That is really difficult. I can't
Yeah,
imagine that.
yeah, that must be very difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd
Yeah.
love to know, have you just been completely shut down? Have you had the opportunity to say, actually, these are the parts that I want to share with my grandchildren, and here is why? I don't want to indoctrinate them, but I want to share with them a different way to see the world. Are the parents afraid of what will happen in that scenario? I'd love to know more about that. What's happening there?
If you'd like to share, Linda, please put it in the comments and I'll read them out for Philip. Yes, it was because she was told not to talk about it. So you've been between a rock and a hard place, basically. And Philip, this is one of the reasons why Angel Heart Radio and having you with us on Angel Heart Radio at this time each month is so very important, because we get to support people in what is really going on in their world. We may not have, answers all tied up that we can send you, but suddenly Linda is here. She's receiving support from us, unconditional support. She says she sneaks it in. God, love you, Linda.
Nice.
And that's the thing, because I can really imagine, Linda, that what you're doing is these are gifts that you want to pass on to your grandchildren.
And is there a thing happening at the moment where everybody knows the turn of phrase, it takes a community to raise a child? But when I see parents these days, they seem intent on doing it all themselves. Are you seeing this a lot as well, Anna, or anybody else listening?
Yep. Anybody else listening? Do you guys see that? I do see that. I am so fortunate. We all know how fortunate I am, because I have a big role in my grandchildren's lives. But it's one of those things, and it wasn't always that easy when we first started, because you've got your children, they're trying to work out how do they stand as parents without a lot of influence or opinions from their own parents. There's a breakaway time, and it's not easy, but what I had to learn to do was it's all about just respecting what's going on. And sometimes you know, they may have opinions, your children may have opinions that you don't agree with. And that can be quite difficult, but it's really imperative to just stay out of it.
Yeah. And
And the other,
I don't know how hard this must be because I don't have children. So I can't imagine what it's like when you see your little child who you is going in the right way, you feel, and going in the right way and doing all the right things, you feel, and suddenly they're exposed to another influence and they start experimenting with it. And you're like, I just don't want them to be that kind of person. But I've seen parents go through this where the more they try to shut it down, the more they end up encouraging it. Whereas if the child is allowed to explore that behavior and work it out and see, actually, this was dumb, and I'm seeing some really negative consequences. They're pretty smart kids a lot of the time, and they do figure stuff out, but they want to try it out. But it must be
exactly.
terrifying for parents just watching their kid. It'd be like watching a kid roll around the dirt and, you know, scrape a knee, but it's the same thing. They've got to experiment and figure out, oh, I fall on a knee, it hurts. I'm
Yep,
learning that, right? Great. Yeah.
exactly. And Belinda says, I mostly keep my opinions to myself, trusting their judgment is best for the kid, for their kids. And that's very wise of you, Belle. I think too, the other thing that happens is if we just live true to ourselves, and that does not necessarily mean, well, I'm going to teach my grandchildren this. So for me, as an example, in the beginning, my views on angels weren't necessarily something that was understood by certain members, right? But what I found that's happened over the years is it's not about, it's just the gentleness of it, just being gentle with it and not sitting down to teach the children what we're going to learn about angels today. And it might be little things like we'd be driving along and you know, I would say, oh, look, can you see the plane in the sky? Oh yeah, look at the plane in the sky. Just imagine all of the people on that plane. Let's send a blessing to everybody and their families. Yes. Oh, I can see angels sitting on the wings of that plane. See, little things like that. It didn't have to be a big thing.
Yeah.
Um, so, you know, and Belle says she's still learning every day too. And every day is a school day. We know that. It's always going to be a school day.
It's actually, it's a really, really great point that you raise there, Anaya, where it's when you want to influence someone in a way that you feel is so good for them, you want to be active and you want to tell them and you want to sit them down. You go, oh, you've got to hear about this. But the far more effective way to convince someone that the way you're doing things is better is to model it and be successful. And the kids will see, they'll sit there and they'll go, one person doing this, one person doing that. Wow, they're doing such a better job. I'm going to go see what they're doing. And it's about modeling that healthy behavior and modeling those positive life skills and life affirmations and healthy relationship patterns, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Those kids are picking up so much more than you're aware of. Kids are amazing at recording things. So be
Yep.
encouraged. Keep it up.
Nothing is lost on a child. And let me tell you this, guys. I mean, my children are adults now, 46, 37 almost 46, 37 and 34, right? So over the years, I've got to witness a lot. Every good thing you put into your child, every single good thing, even if you think they haven't paid any attention whatsoever and it's just gone, you'll see it will come back. You will see the evidence of it present itself throughout their adulthood and then when they have children. And, you know, it's just a brilliant and wonderful thing. And I bet you see that too, Belle. Linda, what about you? Do you see the wonderful things that you've put into your children? It might be something very, very small. That might even seem quite insignificant. You know, do you see it being displayed in some way, however large or small? And you're right, Philip, because when people want to be around people who feel positive, they just wouldn't you? I do.
Yeah.
It's so cool. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And look at this. Belinda says, yes, she does see it. And Linda says, oh, yes. And they tell me, which
Oh,
is brilliant. I mean, as mothers, that must make your hearts sing. So congratulations. Well done. I've got to keep an eye on the time. I've got no idea what time it is. Woo. Okay. It gets so exciting when we're talking about things. The time just melts away, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay, so Philip, what next? Where would you like to go next with this conversation? Or does anybody,
Well,
and by the way, before you answer that, anybody have any questions that you would like to ask Phil? This is a great opportunity for you. You've got a really experienced, amazing guy sitting here, and he
I
is
was going to say
available to you
exactly
right
the
now.
same thing. I'd love for people to be asking, and their experience, or have they got any questions about where science and faith mix, or are they seeing something in their world where they think there's a gap there, or they think they've stepped outside of science or outside of faith? Have they come to a place where they're like, how do these things link, and how do they cross over, and where does one meet the other, and how does one complement the other, if they complement the other?
Yeah, exactly. Now, Rogue Therapies here on Facebook, roguetherapies.com. It's not .com.au, is it? It's just .com.
Correct.
Yep. You can reach Philip through there as well. Philip is based right here in Brisbane, Australia, though he does work worldwide, as we all do now. Many of us do. I think this has just been such a brilliant opportunity for us. So, please do reach out to Philip in a professional capacity if you would like to work with him. So while we're waiting to see if anybody else has any questions or comments, we've looked at religion versus spirituality, or religion and spirituality, because we're not going to be either or. How about then financially speaking, because so many people have been impacted in lots of different ways through COVID, etc. So how do you help people when they come to you and they're really struggling financially, and even if they have a spiritual understanding or base of beliefs, they're finding it very, very difficult to put those two together? How can this happen to me? What sort of a God or what sort of a higher power, does this to people?
Mm. And this can be a very, very difficult subject to broach, because most of the people who are experiencing these sorts of financial difficulties, 9 times out of 10, without realizing it, they've made money into God. So we all worship something without realizing it. All spiritually absent people or atheists I meet, despite the fact they go, I don't worship anything, trust me, they're worshiping God. Worshiping money as God. So they've all put something in place of God, and they're now serving that master, which makes them do quite crazy things. For example, I don't know whether you're following what's happening with digital currencies at the moment, and the whole world is going crazy trying to make a quick buck with digital currencies, and it's turning into a almost a joke about itself. And I can see people clamoring for some sort of thing to put their faith in, and they're looking for that financial security answer. Whereas most financially happy people that I know, there are people who are financially secure but financially unhappy. Most financially happy people I know have stopped borrowing, and they're still investing, but they're more interested in how much they're giving rather than how much they're investing. So you can't get through life and not save some money. You can't get through life and not spend some money. You've got to save some, you've got to spend some. I would highly encourage you to give some or tithe some, and make that your golden rule. And trust me when I say that money is going to, as a God.
Sorry, can you just
I
go
mean,
back? Trust me when you say that. We lost you for a sec. Trust you when you say that money. Do you know what you said?
uh, maybe that money makes a terrible God.
Yeah,
Did I say
that'll
that?
be that'll be. Oh, I like that. It does make a terrible God too, by the way.
Yeah, but we worship it without realizing we're doing it. And because you look out your front door and everyone's doing it, everyone's worshiping money. They're worshiping the almighty achievement, the super cool stuff, or elevating themselves above the social status of their neighbors. Whereas you'll get a lot more out of maybe spending a little less on yourself and spending a little more on someone else.
And that's the thing, isn't it? And it's so incredibly gratifying because there are so many ways, so many simple ways to invest a few dollars in others. You know, I mean, Kiva.org, for an example, microfinancing, it is brilliant. I've been with them for, crikey, I don't know, 15 years now, I think. Angel Heart Radio has an account there, and we you know, we support people that way. $25 at a time. $25 at the moment is a lot for some people. I do understand that. But there are other small things to do, other tiny things to do. It might be you've got $1 coin that you want to do something with. I remember once I had virtually no money, but I really wanted to do something in the world, and I donated $2 to buy pencils for kids who were desperate to learn, didn't have paper and pencils. So everybody gets together and donates a couple of bucks, like literally $2. Boom, suddenly these kids have got, you know, pencils, and they've got paper, and they're able to do their schoolwork. There's lots of ways. And you wait and see now, guys. You will start seeing, if you're open to it, this is how beautiful it is and how easily it works. You will start to see things like that pop up into your awareness.
Yes, and that's where your spiritual aspect comes back into it, right? Because physically you're just doing a little bit of giving, but there are so many. There's that one universal truth which feels Christian, then it's you will reap what you sow. If you're a Buddhist, then it's karma is returned to you in kind. Either way, what you give is what you get back. So if you want to see a world who is generous and there for you when you need it, and to see money come in times of hardship, it's time to start giving, because one doesn't come before the other, generally speaking. Yeah.
Exactly. We all know what happened to the Scrooge. You know, gimme, gimme, gimme. There just wasn't enough left to get to feel okay. And Louise says it's about having a healthy balance. Lovely to have you with us, Louise. And you're right, it is about a healthy balance, because it's not about how much we give. It's that we do give in some way. You may have no money at all to give, but you may give a smile. You may give a helping hand. That is every bit as important and powerful and wonderful and beautiful as, you know, writing a check for $1 million. You know, the person who feels lost and alone and completely isolated, one smile can change their whole world. I've been there.
Yeah,
I know.
I've seen it happen. Yep, absolutely.
Yep. Yeah. So don't be stingy with your smiles. And, you know, some people aren't going to smile back to you. And some people are going to look at you like you're an absolute, you're a freak. What are you smiling at me for? That's okay. You gave the smile. We have to be unconditional with it. Give it away.
Oh, and
Give.
do you know what's probably a good thing to say at this stage as well is some people feel really guilty about receiving. So others will be like, oh, I'll do something else for you. I want to give you money. And people will be like, oh, no, I can't take it. I can't take it. I can't take it. But in these situations, I like to remind people that if someone gives to you, they will get blessed. So if you don't allow them to give to you, you're cheating them out of that blessing. And you're halting that whole cycle of blessing from happening. So be a gracious receiver as well as a gracious giver.
Yeah. I heard that expressed also once. Exactly the same thing. You know, happy givers need gracious receivers.
Mm.
And it's exactly what you've just said, Philip. And it's so important. And sometimes receiving can feel very, particularly if you've been brought up to believe that you have to give, which was my thing. I was like a, you know, compulsive giver. I used to give everything away. I had nothing. I thought I had to have sackcloth and ashes existence, right? So I had nothing. All my clothes had holes in them. I just had nothing, cardboard boxes with cloths on them. But it was such a cool experience because I realized that that really wasn't the way to go forward, not because I didn't have things, but because I didn't feel nourished. It didn't feel good. Your feelings will always tell you. You may get that hit oh, I've done something amazing, and there's that temporary hit. But if it's not sustainable, love is sustainable. And love is translated in lots of different ways, isn't it, Philip? It's translated in, feeling refreshed, in feeling inspired, in feeling invigorated. And those things last. The short-term benefit of living in, well, I'm going to call it straight out what it is, in those addictive behaviors, because I was really, as I say, a serial giver, a serial people pleaser, and a serial rescuer. And it is absolutely darn soul destroying at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And so I think it's important to say that feelings are a great, that they're not a great motivator. So waiting for a feeling to tell you what to do can sometimes be difficult, because you can sometimes have feelings say do this and have feelings say don't do this. But feelings can be a great thing after the act to reaffirm that you're on the right path. And if you're doing something which is really God breathed and really full of blessing, the blessing can flow through you, and both people in interaction can leave recharged. If the blessing isn't, even if you come in with an intent to bless and it's not received, you can both leave drained. So the feelings after the fact can really be a good indicator of, is this where my energies are best spent? Is the person not being receiving? Am I doing it from like a bad place? Is it to satisfy my pride or my addiction? Yeah.
Mm. And the other cool thing about all of this is that I've learned over the years is that none of it's wrong. Everything has a benefit if we're willing to learn, right? Every single thing, it all has a blessing and blessings along the way. And that's really exciting to me, because it's suddenly changed things from being, I've totally screwed this up, and now how am I going to fix it, to, okay, what, if that's my teacher, what can I learn? And everything's my teacher, right? So what can I learn out of this? Not as a way of saying, look how badly I've done, but as a way of saying, well, I'd really like to take what I can from this. So when I move forward, I'm going to move forward with purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
Because there is no purpose
Difficult to,
in staying feeling trapped. There is no purpose to that other than learning how to free yourself from it, in my
yeah.
experience. Mm.
Yes. Ideally, right? Yeah.
And ideally, and that's the thing, we're all capable of it. And it doesn't matter whether, I'm 64, it doesn't matter whether you're sitting here at 64, 24, or 94. If you've got breath in your body, then go for it. Go for it. It's
Yeah.
wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Who else we got here with us? Okay. So Linda says, the magic word is love. It's what it's all about. And that's so true, Linda. And it's not the love that speaks to, I love you, so this is how I want you to behave, and this is how things have got to be. It's the love that says, you know what, I just love you. Go free, do whatever you need to do. Maybe we're not going to even be able to connect, but I can still love you.
Yeah.
It's freeing.
Yeah. And isn't it great? You can love a person regardless of how they react. It can be done.
It
No,
actually
it's not
can
easy.
be done. I wouldn't have believed it, but it can be done. It's not easy. In fact, it is freaking difficult and challenging,
Yes.
but it can be done. Yeah. Yeah. Joanne is with us. Welcome, Joanne. Thank you for watching. Welcome to Angel Heart Radio if it's your first time. So, guys, do you have any questions? What time have we got? Ooh, 6 minutes to go. Who has a question? Anybody? Question, comment for Philip. This is your chance. Go for it, guys. Just going to check the other page and see if there's anything there that I'm missing. I've got so many irons in the fire. Here's so many things to take care of. Okay, so I think in a nutshell today for me, Philip, it's been really fantastic because everybody's heard, me speak so many times. I love hearing you share Every single time I hear you share on Angel Heart Radio, I come away with something. I come away feeling like that. I love the way you said that. That makes a lot of sense. That joins some dots for me.
Thank you very, very much. I think I'm very, very fortunate to be in a place where I can be the mouthpiece of one who is much wiser than I. So praise God. And yeah, always a pleasure to see you, Anaya, and everybody else who's on the channel.
Wonderful. So we've got Philip coming back up in 4 weeks from now. So this is the 3rd week of the month is Philip's slot. Thursday in the USA, Friday here in Australia. So if there are any particular topics or subjects or some assistance you'd like us to build a whole show around, do let us know. We would love to know, because we're here to support you. That's the whole reason we're here. I mean, you know, it's great to see each other, isn't it? And great to spend time together, but we have a much larger purpose for being here.
Yes, indeed.
Indeed, indeed, you duty. So my sister used to say that, indeedy doody, doggy daddy. She doesn't know where, I don't even know if she knows where it came from, but it's stuck with me over the years.
Not to your sister there.
It's probably a cartoon or something. So one of the other things I wanted to briefly touch on before we finished for today in the last few minutes is, how do we support ourselves while we're going through this process? Because it's a big process and it has so many different aspects, Philip.
One thing I think is important to end on is, regardless of whether you're going through a health scare or a relationship issue, and there will be people saying, do this, and people saying, do that. Maybe there's doctors saying, do this, and this is going to happen. And maybe your priest or pastor or spiritual leader saying, do this, and this is going to happen. Everybody could be right. So give the doctor his room and respect his decisions. Take his treatment if you have to, that's fine. And give your spiritual leader or your beliefs or your God their room as well. No one is to be disqualified, because they may hate each other, they may disagree with each other, but there's probably a lot of wisdom from both sides. So give everybody their room to contribute to your treatment or whatever it is you're going through, and mutual respect all the time.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely adore that. And I think that's absolutely perfect, because it is very much about the mutual respect. Without mutual respect, there is no free flow. There's a big block. So mutual respect is a great big thing. So now, just to finish off the show, I want to tell you all something so cool. I saw Carol Ann yesterday. Yay! First time in 2 months that we've actually seen each other. First of all, there was a whole lot of, you know, she wasn't receiving visitors, obviously, right at the beginning. And then there was some, you know, I had some stuff going on in my life, and then I had food poisoning, and one of my kids had a cold. So all these things. And I guess in some ways that ties in with today as well, because there was this constant reminder for me that it will roll around in its perfect moment. And as much as I desperately wanted to go and see her, that it was, I guess, having a spiritual understanding of spiritual life is teaching me patience. And that's something I've always been in very short supply of, let me tell you. But she looks fabulous. She looks so great. She's taking really good care of herself. She's healing so well. She's still resting quite a bit, but she's walking. She's just looking fabulous. And so that was a blessing. So I wanted to let you all know that she's doing great. And man, oh man, has she appreciated all your messages. You've no idea how much and how deeply they've touched her. So thank you all. Okay, Philip, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Awesome. So we
for next week's show.
Sorry?
what have you got lined up for next week's show?
Oh, thanks for asking. I've got an awesome show next week. Roz Place. Many of you will know Roz Place, Angels with Roz. She's a UK-based angel specialist, and she loves helping people connect with angels, etc. So Roz was instrumental as one of the hosts on the Archangel series. Roz did a number of those before our time differences meant that, we just couldn't do it together anymore. And Roz is fantastic, and she's just written a book, and let me tell you what it's called, everyone. Don't go anywhere. No matter what you do, stay right there. I'm going to tell you the name of the book. Oh, yes, Oracle Cards Talk to Me. Clear Oracle card readings with every Oracle card deck every time. And that's available on Kindle. And we're going to be talking about that book. And Roz absolutely loves helping people to really deeply connect with guidance through cards and their own connection with angels, etc., etc. So that's going to be beautiful, and that'll be at a special time of 4:30 p.m. Brisbane, Australia time. I don't know what the conversion is next Friday, because Roz is in the UK, so it'll be her early morning and my afternoon. So that's going to be a really beautiful one. I love Roz, so that'll be lovely. Thanks for asking, Philip. You make a very good co-host.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. As always, lovely to spend time with you. Thanks, Philip.
Have a good one. See you next time.
Remember, everyone, be kind to you. And I mean really generously, lavishly kind to you, because the kinder you are to yourself, not only will you feel amazing, and you will, you are going to fill up your own spiritual tanks and your emotional tanks and your psychological tanks as well. And then you are then full to overflowing, and you have that then to share around, right? It doesn't cost you anything. It's amazing, but it does mean that you have to have courage to do it, because it's probably not going to be, feeling natural to you. So look after you, and remember to check out the other hosts on Angel Heart Radio. We've got lots of lovely people here. It's not just me. There's just incredible people, and we're very blessed to have everyone with us. Beth will be back with you on Sunday in the USA, Monday here in Australia. Till next week, love you. Thanks, Philip. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for all your comments.